MSMEs are the backbone of a country and play a key role in its economic growth. To shed more light on how a dynamic and digitized MSME sector is key to India's inclusive growth, we have with us a panel of representatives from trade associations across the country. I will now call upon Dr. Aruna Sharma, IAS, former Steel Secretary, Government of India, to introduce the panelists and to lead the discussion.
Good day to all of you and welcome to the Sambhav Summit sponsored by Amazon. Sambhav. SM starts for small and marginal, and of course Sambhav means it is possible. So what is possible for small and marginal manufacturers is the issue we are focusing upon. We all are signatories to the SDG goals. SDG. That is what is talking about no one should be left behind. And by that no one, it means the consumer. The consumer in the remotest area should have access to the finest products at affordable cost. And similarly, a manufacturer from the remotest corner should have the possibility of accessing the market or reaching the market of far off areas where it can be competitive and expand the business. Under that scenario, the question comes is, who is the major person or major platform which can be given a driver's seat? Can it be e-commerce platform? And that is what we are going to explore upon, because when you look at it, the technology has made the whole difference. And during pandemic, all the fence sitters, whether it was consumers or manufacturers, they were forced to adopt the high tech, the access, and therefore adopt the e-commerce platforms for buying, as well as when they were going in for selling their new markets to the new merchants and then expanding their businesses. You look at it and you will find surprisingly that when we talk of access, it is the road which will enable the goods to be transferred, whether it is the connectivity, because that will make the services to be transferred, whether it is the fintech, which will make it possible for making the payments, or whether we are talking about the new markets in which they will be entering as we move ahead. To discuss on these issues and these possibilities and the challenges that we may face to go against the dream, we have an excellent panel with us, which is representing literally the entire country. We have representative from Tamil Nadu Chamber of Commerce, we have from Gujarat Chamber of Commerce, we have an entrepreneur with us, we have from Telangana Chamber of Commerce, and of course, we have at the national level with us. So my first question I will address to Mr. Shailesh Patwari, who is with the Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industries and current board member there. Now, when we are talking about India at the rate of 75 and the role of MSMEs into it, what do you think that MSMEs can really make a difference for what we are targeting to achieve? And when we are planning to move ahead into this sector, are they being facilitated by the policy measures, whether boarding on the e-commerce platform, or are we creating some pain points that needs to be addressed? Mr. Shailesh, please.
Yes, thank you. Very relevant question, because we have a lot of MSMEs in our country. Basically, MSME is the backbone of the economy. And MSME gives employment, and GDP is also contributed by MSMEs. Looking to this, if the MSME is given e-platform, I think it will be an added help to the MSME to reach to the buyers. and which is very important because he has no access to so many buyers unless it is a e-platform. And we have seen that during the corona, lot of MSMEs are working on e-platform, and that is giving them very good business competitiveness because otherwise they are limited to restricted buyers. So they were exploiting the suppliers. Here they will have a huge number of buyers through e-platform, and when it is a e-platform, they are secured with everything. They get the payment, they get everything in time, so that they can more concentrate on their product quality. And I think MSME should now insist more on e-platform to sell their products, as the all over the world now the world is a global village when we say, and Atmanirbhar Bharat, which our PM is recommending, is a very much important that such e-platform can be offered to SMEs so that they can be access to entire world, which they are not able to do of themselves.
Absolutely right. What Mr. Shailesh Patwari has highlighted, that today if you want to enter a market, gone are the days when there used to be traders meet, the buyer seller meet, whether national or international. Now sitting in a remote corner and manufacturing, you may have an access to the entire world, and of course India being a huge market. And the importance is you will get a real time feedback when you are moving ahead. अग्रवाल जी, अशोक कुमार अग्रवाल जी, जो प्रेसिडेंट है इंडियन इंडस्ट्रीज एसोसिएशन के, मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगी कि हम जब एमएसएमई की बात करते हैं, और जैसा कि अभी शैलेश जी ने कहा कि एमएसएमईज हाइब्रिड मोड में आप लोकल मार्केट्स के साथ आए, तो क्या एमएसएमई अगर ई प्लेटफॉर्म पे जाते हैं तो उनका झगड़ा जो कॉर्नर शॉप्स है या फिजिकल शॉप्स है उनके साथ कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन है, कंपटीशन है या कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री है? किस तरह से ये आगे बढ़ सकते हैं? और एक और सवाल मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी कि पॉलिसी में जब हम जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन करते हैं, या क्योंकि आप इंडियन एसोसिएशन रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं इसलिए मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी, तो उसमें ई कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म में बोर्ड होने के लिए आपकी थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट कम है, 40 लाख नहीं है अभी भी, और उसके साथ साथ आपको प्लेस ऑफ बिजनेस की बात आती है। तो अगर आप ई कॉमर्स में एक राज्य से दूसरे राज्य में धंधा करोगे तो क्या आपको वहाँ भी रजिस्ट्रेशन करना उचित है या एक नेशनल रजिस्ट्रेशन होना चाहिए? तो अग्रवाल जी, इस बारे में हम सब आपसे जानना चाहेंगे।
मैडम, रजिस्ट्रेशन तो केवल हम अपना, जैसे अगर यूपी में कोई है तो यूपी में एक रजिस्ट्रेशन करा लेगा, क्योंकि माल तो हम कहीं भी भेज सकते हैं, उसकी कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। लेकिन समस्या हमारी ये आती है कि जो हमारे कॉर्नर के जो कस्टमर हैं या कॉर्नर के दुकानदार हैं, उससे हमारा कंपटीशन बहुत डिफरेंट टाइप का है। वो सामान को उधार भी दे सकता है, किसी की वक्त जरूरत पर काम भी आ सकता है, उसके हिसाब से वो कस्टमाइज भी बना सकता है, तैयार कर सकता है। लेकिन जो मुझे ई कॉमर्स में मुझे जो माल बेचना है उसको मुझे देखना कि कस्टमर को क्या नीड है, क्या मैं बना रहा हूँ, क्या मुझे बेचना है। इस तरह की थोड़ा सा तो अंतर आता है कि जो हमारे लोकल की ग्रोसरी है, जो लोकल की दुकान है, और हमारे माल के बनाने बेचने में इस चीज का तो एक अंतर है।
आप जो कह रहे हैं बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं कि उधारी वो देते हैं, परंतु अगर हम मार्केट और कंज्यूमर प्रेफरेंस की बात करें तो आज कंज्यूमर अपने मोबाइल पे अपने घर में बैठ के, इवन रिमोट कॉर्नर में महिलाएं अपनी चॉइस ज़्यादा होने के कारण ई कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म से खरीदना चाहती है। तो क्या आपको लगता है कि किनारे के दुकान हाइब्रिड मोड में जा सकते हैं, जहां वो अपनी दुकान भी रखें और साथ साथ ई कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म से अपने धंधे को भी बढ़ाएं?
बहुत सारे लोग इस काम को कर भी रहे हैं इस समय, आज की तारीख में। बल्कि बड़े शहरों की बात नहीं, छोटे शहरों में भी बहुत सारे लोग इस काम को कर रहे हैं कि ई कॉमर्स से भी माल बेच रहे हैं और अपनी ग्रोसरी से भी माल बेच रहे हैं। ये करना बहुत कठिन नहीं रह गया है। जो आदमी अपने छोटे छोटे ठेले वाला जो सब्जी बेच रहा है, तो वो भी पेमेंट लेने में एक करता है कि शुभ मशीन रख के चल रहा है और ये अपने पेमेंट ऑनलाइन ले रहा है, तो इसमें ये चीज बहुत आसानी से की जा रही है और हो रही है इंडिया में।
नहीं, आपने एक जो मुद्दा कहा उधारी का, क्योंकि ई कॉमर्स में फास्ट पेमेंट से आज एमएसएमई को वर्किंग कैपिटल कम लगता है, क्योंकि उसका पैसा जल्दी सर्कुलेट होता है और देनदारी लेनदारी के लिए उसे लंबा समय इंतज़ार नहीं करना पड़ता। उस कारण उसको कच्चा माल भी सस्ते में, थोड़े सस्ते में मिलता है। तो इसके फ़ायदे धीरे धीरे एमएसएमई को समझाना बहुत ज़रूरत है। Now I will like to address Dr. Ramachandran, who is BHI Capital Advisor and Executive Committee member of the Tamil Nadu Chamber of Commerce. You are an expert on the IT. I will like to address to you that with less penetration in remote areas and with an eagerness among the manufacturers to board the e-commerce platform, how do you think we can overcome that? Plus, how do you think the technology is going to stand in the way or will be adding to the advantage, which takes care of the payment system, which takes care of the e-commerce order placing systems, which takes care of when you are working upon a big advantage of using the technology for modernity, for getting correct information, for comparing the cost. So how do you place the e-commerce will evolve where connectivity is yet to reach and the places where connectivity has reached? Mr. Ramachandran, please.
Yeah, basically, if you look at it, the penetration, I would say, isn't that great. I would agree with you on that point, because I find a lot of people still not being brought to this platform by the government. Why I say the government is MSMEs have been nurtured by the government and it is continuing to do so. And all the commerce associations, including Tamil Chamber and all, we are very active in bringing the MSMEs on board. Now, when we bring them, the technological strength is very little they possess. Why I say this is because they have the manufacturing skills, service delivery skills, all these things are all available with them, abundant. But when it comes to the bridging of the platform, they have to outsource it to third party. They don't have an in-house person. This is the fundamental problem. So the education needs to be driven towards bringing them, giving them the knowledge, dissemination of the knowledge, and then bringing them on board. So this is an uphill task for which all the commerce bodies and NGOs should be very active in this, bringing them, telling them what is the benefit. See, for example, if I take a small village, remote village, they are sending these peanut candies now to US and European Union. How is it possible? Sitting in a small hamlet, they are able to do it. What has brought in the difference is the technology. This message must go to each and every MSME, because MSME thinks, okay, that is not reachable to me because these companies are e-commerce companies are big, they dictate shots. This is a myth. We must disseminate information. For example, if Amazon wants to percolate, it must conduct workshops, how it can integrate. Overnight, if you go to the rural towns, you find self-help groups, you find lot of Indian goods which are being bought in US at a huge price, because the traders make the margin. Now, if you make it available to the SME guys or the manufacturing guys, he will be doubly happy in bringing the dynamics to that, and he will jump onto this platform ASAP the moment he knows this is the biggest opportunity, because we all know that COVID halted down various industries and MSMEs survived because of these e-commerce platforms. This message must penetrate and we must disseminate information, including the government should take a hand-holding step towards doing this. When I say this, China, when they promoted Alibaba, how did they do it? They all disseminated information. You must bring on board all these people, because They are the fundamental fulcrum or the spokes to the wheel, without which you can't run the economy. Today, here is a huge opportunity for you. China is literally wiped out. Every day we find some pandemic or the other in that nation. Why can't we jump on and take that space? I must eat that cake. That spirit, if you drive down to the MSMEs, which they are already working on, will make a sea change into the whole atmosphere. But provided we must handle them. See, the problem with all these small SMEs and things like that, some SMEs even don't have a laptop. They use their phones. WhatsApp, this is the medium of communication for them. So when you want to bring them on board, you must enable them with all these, what are the gadgets you must use, this is how you must use, because they're shy towards this in accepting, I don't know. So why? They have high technological skills. They are delivering goods to various medium and automobile industries. We see that. And if you can do that and turn it up into a e-commerce platform, why not? So this, you must handhold them. This is the fundamental point to grow up this space. Is definitely their channel partners. They must be brought in. They must be roped in with comfort. That is very, very important. So I see this as a huge opportunity which we must tap at the rural level. Not sitting in ABC centers and then calling the shots. No, definitely not. There are still some entrepreneurs who don't know how to place their goods on Amazon or a Flipkart, whatever is the case may be. They don't know what to do, how to take the next step forward. We must enable them by proper dissemination of information through trade bodies, NGOs and all that stuff. And it must reach the rural folk so that India reaps the whole benefit of it.
Very well brought out, Dr. Ramaseshan, that e-commerce platform must handhold to add on more and more MSMEs. The real stories have to reach every panchayat. In the sense, there has to be a state-focused stories so that they understand and identify the neighborhood and identify their own peer group who have used this platform to expand their businesses. And this connecting of story has to reach everywhere and disseminate through every sectors. Then another important issue which you flagged very, very well, that handholding has to also exceed them to have the skills how to describe the product, how to make it on board on the e-platform, how to maintain the accounts, how to trade, how to manage the logistics by taking advantage of these platforms, and then move ahead for the expansion of business. As far as technology is concerned, I have observed the Indian brain, literate or illiterate, is very fast to absorb. We have seen the expansion of mobile phones, 100 million phones in India. It's amazing. And they have managed to learn, even if they don't know reading and writing, how to use the phone to their requirements. And with that background, I will like to come to Shri K. Bhasker Reddy. Because what is very important, you come from a state, Telangana, where we don't have an issue which Mr. Agarwal was mentioning of penetration of connectivity. We don't have an issue of literacy of technology. These were one of the pioneer states which went ahead for the technology along with few other states. You have financial inclusion spent very well. So how do you think e-commerce platform will serve the twin goals, that is to give employment and add to the growth? Because big industries is not going to add to the employment and generate more employment even if they triplicate their business. The employment will not be 3 times. It is the MSME the country has to depend upon for both these twin goals. So how do you think, as Telangana, which has a state set, which has an excellent foundation, but still have some pain points, so what is your observations? What should be to-do list for the e-commerce platform and what should be the to-do list for the policymakers? Mr. Bhasker Reddy, please.
Thank you very much, Aruna Sharma. So again, I bring warm greetings, to all the participants from Federation of Telangana Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Yes, Telangana state is in forefront in technological revolution, and the state government policies helped in identifying these clusters, and not only in the main city. I think all our tier 2, tier 3 cities also has been enabled with these technological revolution and these centers. So that is helping penetration of e-commerce into more deeper into nook and corner. So 2-3 things I would like to say. We are in the beginning of this e-commerce revolution. Already we are experienced the tremendous advantages of e-commerce by all the stakeholders, be it consumer, supplier, manufacturer, service provider, you take it. So this is further going to grow leaps and bounds. So we are going to witness this market explosion. So then that's where we saw the opportunity as a Telangana government is right from beginning. It's a e-savvy, and this is creating a lot of employment. We have a lot of the skilled manpower is available in this e-commerce field, and technology enabled seamless experience to the consumer is driving this entire activity. And this enormous trust is generated to the customer because he is very enthusiastically participating in entire ecosystem, and a lot of choice is there, and competitiveness is there, ease of payment and flexibility is there. So all these are driving. And secondly, the supplier manufacturers also more educated in the state of Telangana. We as a state chamber of commerce, we are continuously promoting these and conducting some workshops how to integrate MSME with the e-commerce platforms. So a lot of training sessions are happening. So that's how overall the employment generation is taking place, and also more and more economic activity is taking place in the state of Telangana.
Very well said, Mr. Bhasker Reddy, because two very important points he has flagged. One is about the trust factor. The platform, the manufacturer, and the customer. All three of them have to have a trust factor. Where the customer has a trust, he gets the material what is described and grievance is redressed. And the manufacturer gets a real-time feedback and prompt payment and true efforts by the platform to exhibit his product for the wider and wider audiences. So this is a miraculous connect between the two ends which is being brought about by these e-commerce platforms. And we have examples of the state government where they have taken a lead to move ahead. And what Mr. Bhasker Reddy very rightly said, the Chamber of Commerce is educating these manufacturers to board on the platform. I think this addresses the issue which other panelists had expressed their concern as the lack of education or lack of knowledge how to go about putting their information on these platforms and how to go ahead with it. Now I will request a real entrepreneur where Davneet Kaur, who is founder of the Umbrella Store, who has started her business small, and with her we will hear the myths whether by boarding the e-commerce platform her margins increased or it lessened, whether she got a newer market or less, whether her turnover increased or it did not increase, or whether she was a status quo, it only was a shift of market, and what are the pain points she had when she was graduating in this journey. To you, Ms. Kaur.
First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me here today on the panel. If I talk about my journey so far as an entrepreneur, it has been totally facilitated by e-commerce. And I remember back when in 2019, when I was just getting started, e-commerce was a new concept in India. and people were still getting their mind behind the idea of e-commerce, and options in the market were very limited. And I was a big time shopaholic, and I had a dream of running my own business. And even at that time, Amazon was the biggest marketplace. So I decided to enroll myself as a seller. And for someone who's just starting out, would know how difficult it is to get eyeballs on your products or services, and how difficult it is to start a brand from scratch. So here, Amazon acted as a helping hand by providing access to a platform with millions of consumers. And because I started really young and I had lack of resources, I started with a very small investment, and slowly and steadily, I built a whole catalog around my brand. And when I saw people buying my products, it really gave me the confidence to reinvest everything into the brand and build a complete range of products around it. I guess the main drawbacks for someone who's just starting out is the investment amount. In traditional times, when when this offline market was the main source, people used to invest a lot of money into real estate and buying a physical store for their brands, or even renting out, and a lot of money was had to be put in terms of inventory. But now, with the emergence of e-commerce and marketplaces like Amazon, you can even start your own business with a handful of products and a very little investment. Even when I started, I had 3 products in my portfolio, and Amazon gave me my products the visibility it required and helped me create a whole range of products. When it comes to the offline market, there are a lot of things that a female entrepreneur might face as compared to a male entrepreneur. As the offline market is a male dominated one, and it is hard to function as people have many prejudice uh, when dealing with female entrepreneurs. So I guess the scenario in e-commerce is very different. And as a female entrepreneur, I have never faced any such prejudice when working online. So I feel e-commerce is very beneficial for someone who's just starting out, or who has already has an offline business and wants to grow online.
Very beautifully said, Davneet. She has brought out two very interesting points. Like, really, the e commerce platform has created an umbrella for her to enter into the market. And she said that e commerce also enables to get gender equity. So, all the barriers, the social barriers, can easily be broken, and also lessens the capital investment in having a physical shop or having large inventory which are lying on the shelf for a longer time, and therefore a fast rolling lesser working capital can do the miracle. I think we have a little time for a quick reaction from each of the panelists. I will like you to comment upon that if we make a statement that for India to think local and be global, do we think that e-commerce is the platform which is going to accelerate? That is one. The answer 90% will be yes. But what do you think could be the hindrances? And second, one policy correction which you think should be brought in to facilitate this if we agree that e-commerce is the future for becoming Atmanirbhar, for think local, be global, and to cater to the markets by reduction of the imports. So we can start out with Mr. Bhasker Reddy.
The first policy correction, if you ask me, a recommendation from our side is the GST. So many small players, so still they are not registered, micro, medium, and SMEs. Some of them are still not crossed the threshold limit, hence they are not having this GST, which has become hindrance for e-commerce players to work with, because as a platform, as a biggie, e-commerce require that GST. So that little correction is required. And I think recently when we attended a parliamentary standing committee, we have discussed this and we have suggested these kind of things. And second thing is, there should be the lot of seamless activities are there where government can promote this e-commerce by involving these artisans, smaller players who they can integrate through giving some kind of an incentive or some kind of an encouragement through the either state government or central government. So those are one or two policy corrections are there. And another thing, what I suggest, public-private partnership is the key in enhancing the this e-commerce activity in the in our country. Because as rightly pointed out by my earlier Mr. Ramaseshan, that the information dissemination is not there. So as long as this information, these kind of a programs, just to bring it to your notice, we at FTCCI partnered with Amazon now for next 6 months in organizing the knowledge dissemination seminars for many MSMEs of our state. So the similar activities we need to propagate, and during these interactions, a lot of suggestions will come from small, micro and MSME that will enable us to recommend to the government to do some kind of a policy corrections, which will definitely make them economically resilient and profitable.
Very well flagged. Dr. Ramaseshan, please.
See, basically, I wanted to, since he was on the point, Mr. Bhasker Reddy was on the point of GST. GST, instead of an enabling tool for tax collection and seamless credits, has come to a point where it is not serving the purpose. I want to make this discordant note here. One is the TCS collection for e-commerce platform. For what? Are they going to run away? Why is this stepmotherly treatment to them? Why should they be penalized with so many returns and so many confusion on TCS, whether to deduct or not to deduct? If you are not deducting, you are not in a safe route, so you are forced to deduct. That is one. Second is, the MSMEs are facing a stiff challenge on GST. Once you raise an invoice, whether your supplier pays or not, you have to pay it on the 20th. Now, this is an arduous task. Now, on top of it, now they are saying, okay, you have bought the goods, but your supplier has not paid, so it is not reflecting in the portal. You can't take credit. This is ridiculous. They never ever in the case of CST, state VAT or GST, this has never been enforced. Now you are saying that supplier has to pay, then only you can take credit. This is ridiculous. I have received the goods, and the basis of taking credit is based on the supplier's invoice and the inward of goods or services, as the case may be. If he doesn't pay him, it's not my problem. I have paid him. See, on the contrary, I have paid him. Double whammy sword hanging on my neck. I don't get the credit. I have paid for him. He has not paid to the government. Never I can do the policing on behalf of the government. Never ever it has been done, attempted like this. And then you are asking these MSMEs to face this challenge. He's localized, highly localized. He's not having his enterprise across pan India to do all this networking and then find out which supplier has not paid, why he has not paid, all those things. He will simply lose that credit. So this was the corollary point I wanted to raise on GST, which is not at all comfortable for MSMEs. Hitherto, when they were under excise duty, they were facing not much of a problem. 1.5 crores they were exempted. Now it is 20 lakhs. Now, Mr. Bhasker Reddy also raised this point. Now, the small MSMEs, if they are less than 20 lakhs, I know most of the industries have squeezed these MSMEs to get themselves registered, or I don't buy. What sort of a statute we have, and how this statute is being bent by these big boys to say, yes, you must get yourself registered. Why? Leave him free for 20 lakhs. Once he crosses it, is his liability. He has to take care. Why are you doing a big umbrella show for all these big boys? And they say, unless you are registered, I won't buy the goods. Now, here comes the e-commerce platforms where they can entertain this in a big way. And these MSMEs must be made knowledgeable that this issue is not there on the e-commerce platforms.
Very, very, very rightly flagged and elaborated. I request Davni whether you have some concern.
As Mr. Bhasker Reddy already mentioned, with the 40 lakhs limit that we have on offline sales while calculating GST, being a small business owner myself, I had faced this issue in the very beginning when the sales were almost in thousands, and still I had to file for the GST return every month and pay my CA the fees to file the returns. So I feel that a little concession on the online sellers in terms of a benchmark sales would be beneficial for new and young business owners to start. And apart from the policies, and I have one suggestion for the marketplaces as well to strengthen their seller support, because a lot of new business owners are worried about because they have a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding regarding how to sell, how to get started, and what are the different kinds of fees associated with selling online. So a strong seller support is very essential to gain the confidence of the sellers, so that they know that there is someone who is looking after their issues and their queries.
Well said. Shailesh ji, you are coming from a vibrant state and you have heard the co-panelists as to what are the problems that is being faced. A similar problem has been addressed for the gems and jewelry sector when there was a serious problem of the GST. So how do you think we can address these problems which has been raised by the co-panelists?
See, first of all, the e-platform business to be increased, then ease of doing business, which our past speakers have said is very correct. Because without that, the MSME cannot take the benefit. Secondly, all the associations should join hands with the e-platform so that the association can become a handholding for the MSMEs. Suppose in the case of Gujarat Chamber of Commerce, we have more than 3 lakh members. So if Gujarat Chamber takes away with the e-platform, then the members can rope in. So I think this is the way we should encourage. And secondly, the ease of doing is very important. Otherwise, MSME industry will not be able to make sales through e-platform because they have a lot of concerns about the GST. What our speaker has said is very rightly that to get the credit or to be penalized for not doing all these things, this is not ease of doing business. And our country, we need to create ease of doing business for e-platform. And there the associations, the chamber, FICCI, CI should use that offices to make their members to understand what is the e-business. I think e-business makes lot of reduction in the cost of marketing also, because otherwise you have to go in person to some places and sell your product. Here you are sitting at a home and you are selling your product. So a lot of cost benefits are also there. Only thing is the quality is very important. Timely supply is very important. These are the issues which chamber should take up with the supplier of the MSMEs, that you have to give the quality, you have to give good packing, you have to give a lot of whatever the after sales services are required, you are supposed to give. And if this chamber and associate take away this responsibility on behalf of the MSME, I think MSME would love to do business on e-platform. And I think e-platform with the association hand together, handholding of MSME is possible. Otherwise, it is very difficult for a small MSME to do business. Secondly, what we should do, every year we can make the awards for those who are doing e-platform business on some quantity. So that will give encouragement to others to also rope in. This is how the girl is saying that I have done like this. This is what is the way we should propaganda of our e-platform to other, those who will be induced to work on e-platform. So I think e-platform is the now coming days is the best available platform to sell your products corner of the country or a world. And as you rightly said, now world is a global village and e-platform can only make your product sell over everywhere.
वेरी वेल सेड अग्रवाल जी, अब मैं आपके पास आती हूँ क्योंकि आप प्रेसिडेंट इंडियन इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशन के हैं। तो दो तीन चीज़ें स्पष्ट आ रही हैं कि एमएसएमईज को ई कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म में बोर्ड होने के लिए आपकी थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट जो 20 लाख की कर दी है उसमें दिक्कतें आ रही हैं। जितना जीएसटी कंप्लायंसेस हैं उसमें उसका काम मैन्युफैक्चर करना है, वो मैन्युफैक्चर करने के साथ साथ उसको कंप्लायंस करने के लिए एक सीए का खर्चा बढ़ गया है या पेनल्टी का भय हो गया है। उसी के साथ साथ अगर हम ई कॉमर्स प्लेटफॉर्म की बात करें तो वो उसमें जाने में इन दोनों कारणों से हिचक में आएगा, तो वो बाज़ार में कैसे टिक पाएगा? तो इसके बारे में मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगी।
मैडम, मैं बताना चाहूँगा कि भी हम लोग अमेजॉन के साथ कई वर्कशॉप कर चुके हैं। कानपुर में भी की थी, अभी बहुत जल्दी 29 को बनारस में होने जा रही है, जिसमें कि मोर देन 500 ओडीओपी के लोग जुड़ रहे हैं। उसमें हम लोग केवल ट्रेनिंग दे रहे हैं कि कैसे हम लोगों को अमेजॉन से या किसी ई प्लेटफॉर्म से अपना माल बेचना है, कैसे रजिस्ट्रेशन कराना है। और उसमें हम लोग इतनी ज़्यादा हैंड होल्डिंग करते हैं उन लोगों की, अपने कस्टमर की या मैन्युफैक्चरर्स की, कि हमको कैसे पैकिंग करनी है, किस तरह से तैयारी करनी है। ये ई प्लेटफॉर्म में अमेजॉन मेरे साथ काफ़ी मदद कर रहा है हमारी एसोसिएशन के साथ। और हमको ये ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है कि किस तरह से हम अपना माल को बेचने के लिए पैकिंग करें। बताना जरूरी है कि अगर जब तक मेरा, जैसे कि जरी जरदोजी है, फरुखाबाद, बरेली, श्यामपुर के इलाके में जरी जरदोजी के बड़े बड़े लहंगे बनते हैं जो कि ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड जाते हैं, लेकिन उसका वजन 3 किलो से 5 किलो होता है। और ग्लोबल लिस्टिंग में और ग्लोबल मार्केट में जाने के लिए उसका ट्रांसपोर्टेशन बहुत ज़्यादा महंगा पड़ रहा है। इन सब चीज़ों पर भी हमें ध्यान देना होगा कि कैसे उसको हम इस माल को यूएस तक पहुंचाएं। इसकी डिमांड पूरे वर्ल्ड में है, तो उसमें हमारे खर्चे कैसे कम पड़े, उसमें काफ़ी मदद मिल सकती है चीज़ों के लिए, क्योंकि ये चीज़ सैकड़ों साल से बन रही है। हम इसमें कुछ चेंज करना चाहें तो बहुत आसान नहीं होगा। कोई भी चीज़ जो हैंडमेड बन रही है, मुरादाबाद के अंदर जो भी हमारी पीतल नगरी है, अलीगढ़ में, सभी जगह इतना ज़्यादा हैंड वर्किंग हो रही है, उनकी पैकिंग को लेके भी काफ़ी समस्या आती है। पैकिंग अगर हमने कर भी दी तो उसका क्या चीज़ इसके अंदर है, इस पैकिंग का एक फोटोग्राफी बार हो, इन सब चीज़ों को लेके हम लोग हैंड होल्डिंग कर रहे हैं। और इसमें हमें चाहिए अमेजॉन या जितने भी ई प्लेटफॉर्म वाले लोग हैं काफ़ी बढ़ के आगे आए, पैकिंग के लिए, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन के लिए, इन सब चीज़ों पर ध्यान दें। बल्कि एक ओडीओपी के लिए होम पेज होना चाहिए, मेरा ये मानना है। और ग्लोबल लिस्टिंग के लिए, जो कि बहुत महंगा पड़ता है, उसमें भी काफ़ी मदद की जरूरत है, ताकि हम अपना माल, जो कहा जाता है ना कि लोकल फॉर वोकल या आत्मनिर्भर भारत, तभी हम बना सकेंगे जब ई कंपनी हम लोगों को इस तरह की कोशिश करें कि ग्लोबल लिस्टिंग में हमारी मदद करें और उसमें कुछ रेट कम करें, ताकि हम अपने माल को बहुत दूर तक भेज सकें।
मिस्टर रामशेषन, यस प्लीज।
See, I wanted to tell MSMEs are suffering for want of credit mechanism. Now, if MSMEs walk into banks, no bank entertains them for a CGT MSE. This is a scheme which has been formed by the central government. For up to 2 crores, you should not ask for collateral. But seldom banks listen to this, including all banks. I don't want to name them. Few banks even don't entertain the first-time entrepreneurs. You should have vintage business. Where he will go if he's a startup? This is one fundamental point. The MSMEs should be exempted and not looked at vintage business. Point number one. Point number two, CGT MSC must be enforced, and MSMEs should have a right to enforce with the bank that they should get cover under CGT MSC. Now, you know what banks say? No, we are not getting counter insurance from them. We are not getting our claims settled. So I don't want to get into it. Where will an MSME go for a collateral? He puts all his money into the business and runs the show with great difficulty. And today money is not available that cheap as well. So who is getting benefited? The big brothers are getting benefited by getting MLR 0.25 plus all those stuff. But where is the MSME? Are we empathizing with them? That credit of 2% comes end of the year, provided you are with a nationalized bank. Where it is going to end? So the ease of funding should also be there for MSMEs.
Well said, Dr. Ramachandran, and very well flagged. So I thank all the panelists for participating and clearly flagging out. Few things have come out very, very crystal clear that if we want India to have a high rate of growth of 7 to 8%, MSME you cannot overlook. And for MSME to be stable, not just be subsistence, but sustainable, there is no other alternative than them boarding on the e-commerce platforms. E-commerce platform is a consumer choice, and consumer is the king. So if consumer is the king, then therefore your product has to be placed in that platform for wider network of market, for wider reach. This has also flagged two roles, one role for the e-commerce and one for the policymakers. For e-commerce platforms, their duty does not end by just providing an e-commerce platform. But as has been correctly flagged out by each of the panelists, a hand-holding is very important. Hand-holding starts by teaching them how to do the packaging, how to describe their product, how to ensure quality assurance, how grievance redressal has to be there, how real-time feedback is to be reacted upon to correct their supply chain, and e-commerce platform takes the burden of maintaining the logistics, providing it, and also maintaining the inventory depending on the market demands. So this kind of a chain role and changed role, both are very important for e-commerce platforms to absorb, and then along with that, educate the people. Another thing that has come out very, very crystal clear for the policymakers to use these MSMEs for skilling. I strongly feel that all skilling programs should translate by paying for 2 to 3 apprentices with these MSMEs. It will be a support to the MSMEs, and you will create skilled people who are better employable than the traditional kind of skilling which is just done to fulfill the targets. What is equally important for the MSMEs in the policy making is a relook into the indirect taxation system, the GST. The GST grievance is very strong. What advantage I had mentioned before, by boarding the e-commerce platform, you need less working capital. But if you don't get the supplier's credit, input credit, then your working capital requirement will increase. So we are negating an advantage by just because we don't have a clarity or ease in the policy making for the GST taxation. The invoices are there, the documents are there, they are all digital, easy to cross-check. The need is to have a simple mechanism to create the invoices and to pay the GSTs and other indirect taxes when we are moving ahead. Similarly, the threshold of 20 lakhs needs to be reconsidered, where in the normal physical shops, it used to be 40 lakhs. So that is another point that needs a policy correction. There are one point which has been very correctly raised is the easy credit availability. It's a real dilemma that banks are flushed with liquidity. They are paying, even though there is a low reverse repo rate, they are depositing more money with RBI than lending. And this lending, in spite of government saying there is no need of collaterals, that confidence has not come in the lenders, and MSME is to rely on a high rate of interest lending which happens through NBFCs or microfinance institutions. So this is something very, very important. Along with that, I will just like to add on one more point which is needed in the corrections and rethinking for these MSMEs, that unfortunately in pandemic, as e-commerce showed a trajectory of growth, many of the MSMEs had to close down because they did not have an easy access to working capital because of closure of business. Now, this is something the e-commerce and the banks or maybe the NBFCs have to work out together to make this working capital available. They don't need for capex, but they need for the working capital. Having said that, what is very, very important for India that we cannot overlook MSME, because that is where the 8 million jobs per annum can be created for our population, which we claim to be young. If we don't want them to be a liability and become vagabonds, and we want them to be asset, we have to create these 8 million jobs. And there is no shortcut to it than depending on the MSMEs, because big industries and agriculture, they are reaching their saturation points. And MSME can do it by only riding the horse of e-commerce platforms. Thank you so much for joining us. And once again, I thank each of the panelists. Thank you. Thank you so much.